The untamed heart of California, a whirlwind of scandal and necessity. The California dust swirled in a perpetual dance, painting the sky in hues of amber and rust as the sun dipped below the jagged Sierra Nevada foothills. For Elisa Hawthorne, the relentless wind was a mirror to the turmoil within her. Just 6 months ago, she had arrived in the fledgling town of Havenwood, a beacon of refined education amidst the rough and tumble frontier. Now, a meticulously constructed life threatened to unravel with each passing day, betrayed by the subtle curve of her waistline beneath her modest dresses. She was unwed, pregnant, and desperately in need of respectability. Havenwood was a place of opportunity, yes, but also of unforgiving judgment. A single woman with child was an anomaly, a scandal waiting to explode, especially a school teacher entrusted with the moral upbringing of the town's youth. Elisa had always prided herself on her independence and intellect, but the rigid societal expectations of her waddle cage she found herself trapped within. Her former fiancé, a silver-tongued prospector who had promised her the world before vanishing into the mountains, was long gone, leaving her with a secret that would surely cost her everything. She sat by the window of her small schoolhouse, the last rays of sunlight glinting off the pages of an open textbook. Her fingers, usually steady, trembled slightly. She had overheard whispers in the general store, seen the knowing glances from the women who once praised her dedication. The school board, composed of Havenwood, the most prominent citizens, was due to meet next week. She knew what was coming: dismissal, ruin. A knock at the schoolhouse door jolted her from her melancholic reverie. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Who could it be at this hour? She straightened her spine, smoothing down her skirt, and took a deep breath before answering. Standing on the porch, silhouetted against the vibrant orange sky, was Jedediah Stone. Even in the fading light, his presence was formidable. He was a man carved from the very landscape, tall, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that spoke of sun, wind, and silent burdens. His dark eyes, usually narrowed against the glare, held an intensity that could be unsettling. Ed Stone owned the largest ranch in the valley, a vast expanse of land stretching towards the distant peaks, known as Stone Creek. He was a man of few words, known for his formidable cattle herds and his even more formidable solitude. The town respected him, but few dared to truly know him. Miss Hawthorne. His voice was a low rumble, surprisingly soft for such a formidable figure. He removed his wide-brimmed hat, revealing a tangle of dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. "Mr. Stone," Elisa replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She clutched the door frame, acutely aware of her condition, feeling exposed under his silent gaze. "To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" He shifted his weight, his boots scuffing lightly on the wooden porch. "He heard her talk," he began, his gaze sweeping over her, not lingering on her waist, but somehow conveying a complete awareness. "About your situation." Elisa's cheeks burned. "My situation is my own affair, Mr. Stone." He met her defiant stare without flinching. "Perhaps, but a predicament often requires unconventional solutions." He paused, and for a long moment, only the mournful cry of a distant coyote broke the silence. "I need a wife, Miss Hawthorne, and it seems you need a husband." The audacity of his proposal stole her breath. Her mind reeled. A marriage of convenience. To Jedediah Stone, the brooding, solitary rancher, it was preposterous. Yet a tiny spark of desperate hope flickered within her. He offered a shield, a name, a future for her unborn child. He offered respectability, Mr. Stone. She managed, her voice a thin whisper. "I don't understand. Why me? And why now?" His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. "My ranch needs a woman's hand. The house is empty. And there are business matters that would be easier handled with a Mrs. Stone by my side. As for why you are a good woman, Miss Hawthorne. Intelligent, resilient. and you find yourself in a position where convention is no longer an option. He paused again, his dark eyes searching hers. I'd offer you a home, a name, and protection. Nothing more would be expected of you that you are unwilling to give. His words, blunt and practical, lacked any hint of romance, yet they held an undeniable honesty. He wasn't promising love, but he was offering a lifeline. For her child, she would do anything. She looked past him, towards the vast, untamed Californian landscape that was his domain. It stretched for miles, a testament to his strength and determination. Could she find a place for herself and for her child within that wildness? Could she trust this silent, imposing man with her future? The wind picked up, rustling the dry leaves of the cottonwood tree. Outside, it carried with it the scent of sagebrush and distant pine, the scent of the wild, raw land. Elisa closed her eyes for a brief moment, picturing the scornful faces of the school board. The bleak future for an unwed mother in Havenwood. Judd Stone, for all his gruffness, was offering a way out, a chance for a new beginning. It was not the romantic dreams he had once envisioned, but it was stability. It was survival. It was survival. It was perhaps her only hope. Give me until morning, Mr. Stone, she said, her voice finding its strength. I need to consider your proposition. He simply nodded, his eyes still holding hers for another beat, before he replaced his hat. The offer stands, he said, his voice low. Good evening, Miss Hawthorne. He turned and walked away, his long strides carrying him quickly into the deepening twilight. Elisa watched him go, a mix of fear and strange anticipation swirling within her. The decision felt monumental, capable of altering the course of her entire life. Yet, as she looked at the faint outline of her growing belly, she knew she had very little choice. The morning dawned crisp and clear, the California sun already warm on Elisa's face as she walked towards Jedediah Stone's ranch. Her decision, made after a sleepless night of agonizing deliberation, felt both terrifying and liberating. The Potterstone Creek Range was dusty and winding, lined with oaks and chaparral, leading away from the familiar confines of Havenwood and towards an uncertain future. When she arrived, Jedediah was waiting for her on the porch, leaning against a rough-hewn post, his arms crossed over his chest. He wore a simple work shirt and denim trousers, looking every inch the rancher he was. His expression was unreadable, but there was an expectant glint in his dark eyes. Mr. Stone, Elisa began, her voice steady. I accept your proposal. A flicker of something, relief perhaps, or a grim satisfaction, crossed his face. He nodded slowly. Good, we'll ride into town this afternoon. The circuit preacher will be passing through. We can be married by sundown. His efficiency was startling, yet she appreciated it. There was no room for lingering doubt or second thoughts. So soon, no point in waiting, he stated simply. The sooner it's done, the sooner you'll have your respectability and I'll have a wife. His bluntness, devoid of any pretense, was almost refreshing. She was under no illusions about the nature of their union. This was a transaction, a practical arrangement, born of mutual need, yet a part of her yearned for something more, a connection beyond the mere legalities. She pushed the thought aside. She had chosen this path for her child, and for that, she would make it work. The ride into Havenwood was silent, the creak of the wagon wheels and the distant lowing of cattle, the only sounds. Elisa watched the familiar town approach, her heart heavy and light all at once. By the time the sun began its descent, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, Elisa Hawthorne was no more. She was Mrs. Jedediah Stone. The ceremony was brief, witnessed by the preacher, the general store owner, and his wife, the latter two exchanging thinly veiled curious glances at Elisa's slightly rounded figure. Jedediah's hand, when he took hers to place the simple silver band on her finger, was calloused and worn. It was the only touch they shared, Back at Stone Creek, the ranch house was larger than Elisa had imagined. A sturdy two-story structure built from rough-hewn timber and local stone. It was clean, but undeniably masculine, sparsely furnished, and devoid of the delicate touches a woman's hand would provide. The walls echoed with a quiet stillness that spoke of years of solitary living. Jedediah led her inside, his movements fluid and economical. "The bedroom on the left is yours," he said, gesturing towards a door. "Mine is at the end of the hall." He paused, his gaze meeting hers. "We'll maintain separate quarters, as agreed. Unless you object." Elisa's gaze flickered to his. There was a challenge in his eyes, a question. The spicy element of their arrangement, the unspoken tension of their proximity, began to simmer. She was a pregnant woman, seeking respectability, and he, a brooding man in need of a wife. Their bodies, their desires were a complicated landscape yet to be explored or ignored. "No, Mr. Stone," she replied, her voice firm. "I do not object. The arrangement suits me. A lie, perhaps, but a necessary one." He nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his head. "Good. There's a kitchen. Food in the pantry. You'll have full run of the house." A pause again. A hint of forwardness, rare for him, touching his stern features. "If you need anything, let me know. I'll be in the barn." With that, he was gone, leaving Elisa alone in her new home. She explored the house, noting the sturdy, practical furniture, the absence of frills, the overwhelming sense of space. Her designated bedroom was simply a large bed, a wardrobe, a small writing desk by the window overlooking the vast, rolling hills of the ranch. It was a stark contrast to the cozy, if small, schoolhouse she had left behind. Over the next few weeks, Elisa settled into a new routine. She rose with the sun, took on the task of bringing warmth and order to the silent house. She cooked the hearty meals for Jedediah and his small crew of ranch hands, cleaned and slowly, meticulously began to transform the house into a home. She never spoke of her past, and Jedediah never asked. Their conversations were sparse, centered on ranch logistics, the weather, or the occasional town gossip brought back by Jedediah after his trips. Yet despite the distance, a peculiar dynamic began to form between them. Jedediah was always present, a silent, watchful presence. She'd catch him observing her from across the yard, or notice a small gesture of care, a pail of fresh water left by the kitchen door, a difficult chore completed before she had a chance to attempt it. He was a man of actions, not words. One evening, after a particularly long day of mending clothes and preserving vegetables, Elisa felt a sharp pain in her back. She gasped, leaning against the kitchen counter. Jedediah, who had just come in for supper, was instantly beside her, his rough hand gently steadying her arm. "What is it?" His voice was gruff with concern. "Just a stitch," she managed, waving a dismissive hand. "The baby, perhaps." He looked at her, his dark eyes filled with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "You need to rest, Elisa," he said, using her first name for the first time outside the wedding ceremony. It felt shockingly intimate. "You're carrying my child. You need to take care." The words, "my child," resonated deeply within her. It was a statement of ownership, yes, but also protection. In that moment, she saw beyond the brooding rancher and the practical arrangement. She saw a man capable of fierce loyalty, a silent strength that promised a heaven in this wild land. Their spicy undercurrent between them was not just about physical attraction, but the deep, unspoken understanding and growing respect that transcended their initial, purely transactional agreement. This marriage of convenience, under the vast indifferent California sky, was slowly, subtly becoming something more profound. To truly immerse yourself in the rugged beauty and dramatic landscapes that inspired stories like Elisa and Jedediah's, Consider exploring the historic towns and natural wonders of the California Old West. From the gold rush era to the vast cattle ranches, the spirit of adventure still thrives. The seasons turned, and with them, the landscape of Stone Creek Ranch transformed. Spring rains brought forth an explosion of wildflowers across the rolling hills, painting the world in vibrant purples, yellows, and Elisa's pregnancy progressed, her belly growing rounder with each passing week, a visible testament to her new reality and the secret she once hid. Her days were filled with the rhythm of ranch life. She managed the household, baked bread, tended a small garden, and even found herself assisting Jedediah with minor tasks, sorting seeds for planting, or organizing the ranch's ledger books, her quick mind proving an unexpected asset. Jedediah, in turn, began to rely on her more. He'd seek her counsel on decisions about the harvest or the livestock, valuing her calm perspective. Their quiet companionship grew, nurtured by shared duties and the isolated beauty of the ranch. The initial awkwardness between them had softened into a comfortable silence. Elisa found herself looking forward to his return. Each evening, to the familiar thud of his boots on the porch, the shared meals at the sturdy kitchen table. She'd catch him watching her, a contemplative and tender look in his dark eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. These stolen glances, these subtle ships in their silent communication, were the spicy sparks of their growing connection, hinting at desires far beyond their pragmatic agreement. One scorching summer afternoon, a rogue brush fire, ignited by a lightning strike in the distant hills, threatened the western pasture of Stone Creek. Panic erupted among the ranch hands. Jedediah, usually so stoic, moved with an urgent intensity, shouting orders, rallying his men to fight the encroaching flames. Elisa watched from the porch, her heart pounding with fear, not just for the ranch, but for him. Against Jedediah's stern warnings to stay inside, she found herself fetching buckets of water, soaking burlap sacks, and helping prepare food and drink for the exhausted men. She worked tirelessly, her swollen ankles aching, driven by a primal need to protect her home and the man who had given it to her. When Jedediah finally returned, hours later, his face streaked with soot and grime, his clothes torn, he found Elisa waiting for him, a basin of cool water and a clean towel in hand. He sank onto the porch steps, utterly spent. "You should have stayed inside," he rasped, but his eyes held no anger, only a deep weariness. "And let you fight it alone?" Elisa replied softly, kneeling before him to gently wipe the soot from his face. Her touch was feather-light, yet it held a potent warmth. "This is my home now too, Jedediah." He caught her hand, his calloused fingers wrapping around hers, holding it tightly against his cheek. His eyes, usually guarded, were soft, vulnerably. "Thank you, Elisa," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." In that moment, the barriers between them crumbled. Their gases locked, and the unspoken desires, the longing that had simmered beneath the surface of their practical union, ignited. He pulled her gently towards him, his hand moving to rest on her rounded belly, a silent acknowledgement of the life they were creating together. Then his other hand cupped her jaw, and he leaned in, his lips finding her. The kiss was fierce and tender, a culmination of months of suppressed emotion, of quiet observation, of burgeoning affection. It tasted of smoke and dust, and a desperate, beautiful relief. Elisa responded with an intensity that surprised her, pouring all her unspoken fears, her gratitude, her budding love into the embrace. This was not a kiss of convenience, but of passion, of a connection forged in the fires of shared hardship and mutual respect. That night, for the first time, Elisa did not sleep in her own room. Jedediah led her to his, the room at the end of the hall that had once felt so distant. The moonlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in a soft, silver glow. There were no words, only the language of touch, of unspoken understanding. He was careful, infinitely gentle, acutely aware of her condition, yet the intimacy was profound. an exploration of bodies and souls that transcended their initial agreement. The spicy adventures were not just in the daring escape from scandal, but in the slow, delicious unraveling of two guarded hearts, finding solace and passion in each other's embrace under the wide, starry California sky. Their union, once purely transactional, had blossomed into something real, something beautiful. Elisa realized she had not only found respectability, but a love she had never dared to dream of with this brooding, protective man. And Jedediah, in Elisa, had found not just a wife to fill his empty home, but a partner, a confidante, and a source of immeasurable joy. The wild land of California, which had once felt like a place of exile, was now the fertile ground for their burgeoning love and family. The last weeks of Elisa's pregnancy were a flurry of preparations in quiet anticipation. The ranch house, once so stark, now hummed with a different kind of life. Elisa had sewn tiny garments, prepared a small cradle in their shared bedroom, and filled the air with the scent of lavender and freshly baked peas. Jedediah, usually so calm, was a bundle of barely contained nerves, fussing over her comfort, making sure she rested, and watching her with an almost unbearable tenderness. The brooding rancher was undeniably smitten. Their love had deepened into a profound connection, forged not just in passion, but in the shared challenges and quiet moments of ranch life. Elisa now understood the depth of Jedediah's silent strength, his fierce loyalty, and the gentle heart hidden beneath his rugged exterior. In turn, had come to depend on her wisdom, her warmth, and the vibrant life she brought to Stone Creek. One stormy night, as the rain lashed against the windows and thunder rumbled across the valley, Elisa's labor began. It was a long, arduous night, filled with pain and exhaustion, but Jedediah remained by her side, a steadfast anchor in the storm. He held her hand, wiped her brow, murmured words of encouragement, his presence a comforting shield against the agony. The ranch hands, alerted by the commotion, waited anxiously in the kitchen, their gruff voices hushed with concern. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in soft pinks and grays, a new cry echoed through the ranch house. A baby's cry, strong and clear, announcing the arrival of a new life. Elisa, exhausted but triumphant, looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms, a perfected little girl with a shock of dark hair and Jedediah's intense, intelligent eyes. Jedediah, silently tracking through the grime on his face, knelt beside the bed and reached out a trembling finger to touch their daughter's tiny hand. "Our daughters," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, his gaze shifting from the baby to Elisa, filled with an overwhelming love. "Our Mary," Elisa smiled, a radiant, tired smile. "Mary Stone," she confirmed, pressing a kiss to her daughter's soft head. The name, simple and strong, felt right. It was a name for a child born of necessity, forged in adversity, and welcomed into a love that had grown against all odds. Life at Stone Creek Ranch settled into a joyful new rhythm with baby Mary. The ranch, once a lonely outpost, was now a vibrant home, filled with laughter and the gentle sounds of a growing family. Elisa found a deeper sense of fulfillment than she had ever imagined, not just in motherhood, but in her partnership with Jedediah. Their marriage of convenience had become a marriage of true love, a testament to unexpected ways fate can weave happiness from hardship. The pregnant schoolteacher had found more than respectability. She had found a family, a home, and a love as vast and enduring as the California landscape itself. And the brooding rancher, whose proposal had once been a purely practical affair, had discovered the profound joy of an untamed heart, finally open and deeply cherished. Their story whispered around the campfires of Stone Creek and in the bustling kitchens of Havenwood, became a legend in its own right, a tale of courage, compromise, and the unexpected blossoming of love in the wild, untamed heart of California. The scandalous whispers that once plagued Elisa were long forgotten, replaced by admiration for her strength and the unwavering devotion of her husband. Their home, Stone Creek Ranch, stood as a beacon of their enduring bond, a place where adventure, passion, and a deep, abiding love found their truest expression. The California sun continued its daily journey across the sky, casting long shadows over the ranch, but inside the Stone household, a warm and steady light burned brightly, promising a future as boundless and beautiful as the land they called home. If you enjoyed Elisa and Jedediah's journey from a practical arrangement to an enduring love, then you won't want to miss our future adventures. Subscribe to our channel now to get weekly doses of Old West romance, daring tales and heartwarming stories delivered straight to you.